The People's Platform.
A very good evening. You're watching The People's Platform here on TV1. And of course tonight we have a guest who has been in politics for a considerable period of time. She has been an activist and you always see her being so vocal about every issue that takes place in Sri Lanka. It is none other than Dr. Ajantha Perera. A very good evening, Doctor.
Thank you for
and welcome
inviting.
on the show.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Doctor. We see that we're in an election year. We don't know when the election will be, but we're always hoping that it will be sometime soon. So assuming that there will be an election, let's talk about a presidential election.
Yeah.
And we see that there are some candidates who have been announced from several parties. There are also some surprises to come in. There will definitely be a lot of surprises in the future. But against such a backdrop, as voters or as citizens, we also play a major role when it comes to voting. I think we're the ones who play the biggest role. So we'll start off with how you think, how do you think the voters this time should be mindful when picking the selecting the correct candidate?
Yeah, I think the elections will take place because they have no other option. The Constitution says that after 5 years there has to be elections. So I presume it would be in October. More likely by August, September, they will announce and there will be candidates who will come forward because you need time also to go around and do your campaigning. So basically it's going to be a very interesting time because you see the thing is already there are a lot of candidates who are coming forward and or they are literally saying that they are going to be competing. But one of the main issues is really with the voters. The candidates can come forward and democracy is that. Because last year I remember when I was also a presidential, I also contested last year, 2019. And I mean, everyone who has desire to do something good for the country, they should come forward. There's no argument on that. But then when we look at what we have at hand, we have a country which has a debt of 23,000 billion rupees. You know, the debt itself is 23,000 almost billions. So now the situation is, whom do we choose? Last year there were 35 candidates and I was the only female candidate. Now this year I'm 100% sure it's going to be far more than that because there are more people showing interest in coming forward for the election. So the question comes is, whom should the people elect? Now if you look at a company, let's say Sri Lanka is a huge company earning the highest amount of profits, right? Having the highest expenditure. Now a company, if that company has gone bankrupt and that company is now in a sinking situation, whom should you choose as the CEO or the chairperson of that company to bring it forward? Who should rescue it? You see, if you look at the election of the president in that way, the whole picture changes. No longer can you choose the most popular one. No longer can you choose the most handsome or the good-looking one. You need to think beyond that. So basically this time when we are going to be selecting the president, it's almost selecting the chairperson of a company that is sinking or basically, it has gone bankrupt. So what should the people be looking at? The people should be looking at his track record. You see, anybody can come forward as the president, but the most important is the track record. How has he or she performed in the past? What have they achieved? Have they done a drastic change in the country which has brought the country forward? Have they lifted up the economy of the country? Those are the things that you need to look at. And also on corruption, bribery and corruption. Have they taken part in bribery and corruption? Do they have legal cases against them? These are major issues. And then also another thing that comes in is that, is this person people friendly? Because without understanding the people, it's so, when you become a president and if you do not understand the people themselves, what they desire to have, then you could fail. So basically, and also a very, very important thing that you need to look at is his team. Who's going to be in his team? Now, when we look at a person as a presidential candidate, we need to also look behind to see who is backing him or her, who is going to be in the team. So it then comes the political party.
Yes, I'd like to ask you at that point, Dr. Ajantha. Now, we see there are very strong few political parties in Sri Lanka. And apart from those, do you think there is enough potential for individual candidates, independent candidates to run for presidency, and where is the probability of them winning, because they don't have that strong backing? If you take any candidate that represents a party, there is always that group behind them, there is a campaign financing, there is a reputation that is already built up within the party, so just naturally they have more chances of winning an election. But when an independent person comes, let's say an entrepreneur or a businessman comes into the play and wants to run for presidency, then you have to start from scratch. You don't have that strong team, you don't have the experience, because I believe in politics, experience plays a very vital role. So when you come from a party, that experience will be there with you. But when people come from other walks of life into politics, don't you think it's a bit more challenging?
Well, I would definitely hope that people in this country would understand that all those who have done politics in the past, who have been parliamentarians, they are the ones who actually brought the country to this desperate level. We need to understand, do we want to vote for them again? Are we continuously going to be forgiving and forgetting? Is that what Sri Lanka should be? No. This is a fantastic opportunity for the first time in Sri Lanka where independent candidates should be given ample opportunity. Now, if you look at a businessman, if a person is capable of running a good company with a good team of people, they are the best eligible to become the president, because we are in debt. And we need to develop our economy. We need to go forward. People want to see prosperity. Now, I know the present government is saying that the debt will be paid only in 2047. That's in another 25 years or 24 years. And we are going to be in desperate situation up until that time. So is that what we want? Do we want to always bring someone who knows politics, who knows how to talk to the people, and also who knows exactly what to say in order to get the vote? Is that what we are looking for? No, definitely not. This time we are looking for a capable person who knows exactly what he plans to do, needs to have a real good plan ahead, and then also the most important is someone who has no corruption, no bribery records, and also someone who has a very good team. This becomes a very important point, because what I kind of feel is, now if you really look at people with other backgrounds, for example, when we look at politicians, sometimes we say, okay, he has been in politics for such a long time, he has been in the parliament, he has all the experience. All these 225 have been there in the parliament for such a long time. What have they achieved? Now, many of them are saying, I was never the president, so when I become the president, I will do this. That's rubbish. Because when you are in the parliament, you're supposed to be team working. Okay, you may be in the opposition, but you are still part of the team of the government which is trying to develop the country. And that has been your mandate and you have been paid for it. I mean, every parliamentarian who is existing right now, they have been paid so much money by the people. You know, taxpayers' money has been spent on them. And yet, what have they done? They have not done anything. So what can we expect when they become the president? If I were the president, that doesn't work. I mean, that's just bluffing. So basically, people need to think very hard right now. And I also want to urge people who are living abroad to come forward. They should not have these dual citizenship issues with them. Automatically, you know, people who are living abroad, who may be running businesses abroad, who may be doing fantastic companies, you know, abroad, they are eligible to come back here to Sri Lanka and run for the presidency. Why not? And I think that should be so good, because in the USA, they have done a survey as to the household income of foreigners living in the USA. Do you know that the Sri Lankan families have come forth? So Sri Lankans have done fantastically well in the US as earners. You know, they are just behind the Indians. So that means our people are so capable. And to answer your question, yes, this is why I believe programs such as this should encourage people who have never thought of doing politics, but yet who are great entrepreneurs, great industrialists, you know, people who know how to run a business and make profit. And that's what Sri Lanka needs. We can call them the president, but at the end of the day, he needs to have a set of plans for the country, for economy, for agriculture, for health, for education, and then he needs to have a good team. And others should support them.
Of course. Leaving the presidential election aside, if you take any form of election, whether it's provincial council or local government or so on, we see that when especially youngsters or even females are trying to get into politics, there should always be some sort of backing. You have to either come from a political family, as in your father has to be a politician, your mother should have been holding a good position in some political party, or your brothers or your sisters should be from a political background or something like that. How do we break that stigma, and how do we encourage more people to come and actively participate in politics?
Very easy.
I think Aragalaya played a good, it was a good example, because you had people from all walks of life, especially the youth, coming in and actively engaging, trying to create a system change. So like that, how can we create a platform or broaden the political sphere, so that more people could come and actively engage in politics?
Well, basically, I think it's an easy task, because anyone who comes as a candidate, maybe in the provincial election, maybe the local government, maybe as a president, they need to put forward a manifesto to say exactly what they will be doing, and they need to lay it out clearly. You need to have transparency, and this is very, very important. Transparency before the election. Exactly what you are planning to perform, how you are going to get the job done. I mean, if you go for an interview in a company and you apply to become the CEO of a company, they take you through so much of interviewing, you know, questioning as to what your credibility is. I mean, they will ask you about your experience, what are the best projects you have done.
There's at least 5 rounds of interviews with different departments.
And here in Sri Lanka, to become the president, you know, what you need is popularity, and that's rubbish. Let's forget about that. No more we are going to go by popularity. Now the time has come for them to say exactly how they are going to get the country out of the debt crisis, how they are going to bring about industrialization, how they are going to enhance the agriculture. All those things should be laid out properly. Then there are fantastic companies in Sri Lanka which can take the manifesto and do some monitoring, you know, and tell the people exactly what each candidate is capable of. And here comes a chance for the young people. Young people can put forward their manifesto and say, I'm going to be doing this in order to remedy the country. And then the companies should come in and say, who are going to be questioning and educating the people, they should look at it, they should digest it, they should analyze it, and then they say, okay, this person is capable, and let them use the media platform in order to promote such people. So here we are bringing people, new people forward, and nobody should, think about whether they come from a Walauva, whether they come from a English-speaking background, whether they should be educated in Harvard or wherever. Those things are not so necessary, because what we want is someone who can get the job done. And this is what we are looking for in a president this time. Someone who's capable of getting the job done.
Someone who can walk the talk. Definitely.
Walk the talk.
There's a lot more to talk about, but we're tossing over to a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. This is the People's Platform on TV1.
The People's Platform.
TV1. TV for life.
Sri Lanka ready to celebrate the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. The New Year dawns at 9:50 p.m. on Saturday. 8 Sri Lankans rescued from the Myanmar terrorist group handed over to the custody of the Thai ambassador. Decision on presidential candidate pending, but will contest under the flower bud symbol, says Namal. Nimal Siripala's appointment is wrong. Maithripala's faction presents several proposals to resolve the SLFP crisis. 2 police officers arrested over the alleged assault on youth, causing lifelong injuries. Lanka Sathosa to further reduce prices of goods for the new year.
TV1. TV for life.
The People's Platform.
Welcome back. You're watching the People's Platform. We are joined by Dr. Ajantha Perera. Dr. Ajantha, before we went to the break, you were speaking about manifestos.
Yes.
How everyone who is running for any election should have a strong manifesto. But the issue in Sri Lanka is pre-election. Everyone has a strong manifesto. All these parties, all these candidates will have a very nicely printed paper. They'll come out at each and every meeting and read it out and manipulate the people to think we are actually going to do this. But as soon as they get into power, as soon as they get into those seats, that paper is somewhere else. They always forget those promises. How will it change this time? How should the voters do it differently?
Well, I think this time, you see, I remember, I agree with you 100% with the false pretense that happened, and how we got into a big soup. So basically what we need to do is we need to look at the manifesto, and the manifestos need not be very long. We don't need books. We only need to know exactly how they are going to. The most important thing in the country right now is the debt crisis. How are we going to develop our country in such a way that the gross domestic production is something that we can increase, and how are we going to increase that? Which are the industries that we are going to develop? Which are the cottage industries that we are going to develop? How are we going to provide people with the incentives in order to develop the industries? How are we going to develop the agriculture? What are the facilities that we are going to do for storing, for kind of manufacturing other things out of these things? So even the infrastructure. how are we going to utilize all these things in order to increase the income within inside the country? Number one. Second one is, what about the expenditure? Now, very often if you look at the income and the expenditure of Sri Lankan budget, I mean, the expenditure is so huge, income is so small. Generally, the income is around 1,500 billion rupees, but the expenditure is about 5,000 billion. Now, one of the things that they have found out in 2023 is most of the expenditure has been to pay the government servants' salaries and also to give Aswasuma and also Samurti. Now, is this the line we are going to go on? I hope someone who becomes the president, the new president, will not think in those lines, because we don't need to create social security here in Sri Lanka. What we need to do is to ensure that every single person has the ability to earn some money and contribute to the development of the country. We don't need to have beggars. We don't promote beggars. We need to have every single individual contributing to the development of the country for the income.
The issue in Sri Lanka is with politics comes political appointments. If you take the CEB, about a good percentage are all political appointments, and that's all excess staff. So that is very common in Sri Lanka, especially in the state sector. It's always going to be political appointments.
No more, because that's what we are going to stand up for. The people who were in Aragalaya, we were in Aragalaya in order to bring a system change. And this election, we are going to bring that system change. It's so desperately needed in the country. We need to think straight, because no matter how fantastic the manifesto is, I believe one of the most important things is to analyze it, digest it, ensure that it is feasible. We don't want any manifestos which are dream things. It should be transparency, should be there, monitoring aspect should be there, how it's going to be done, it should be there, and also who's going to be in the team. If you are going to have a minister for finance, then let it be someone who has at least a master's in finance management. Don't bring people just because of politics, just because of the party that you need to side with them. And no more political appointments. Every website of a government corporation, every website of a ministry should say what the job description of the person is and what their qualification. It should tally. Without telling, I mean, today most of the chairpersons in the corporations are favorites of the hierarchies. We don't want that rubbish. I mean, for example, even right now, the Consumer Affairs Authority during a high festive season doesn't have a chairperson who's supposed to be doing the monitoring work of the, how expensive the goods are. So what we want is a well-kept, well-managed country. And I think for that reason, we need a president who is able to govern this country without corruption. We don't want the new president to have anyone corrupt cases to be around him. We don't want that, because this is the only, I want Sri Lankans to understand one thing. This is the last chance you will have to elect someone who will do good for the country. This is the very last chance. If we make a mistake in this election, we will make a mess of the whole thing. I mean, we can't correct it from the parliamentary election. We can't expect, we can't be praying to God, please God send some good people to the parliament. No, it doesn't work that way. We have been given a brain to use it. And so we begin with the president. And I really want to urge Sri Lankans who are living abroad, who are doing fantastically well, who are extremely skilled, especially young people, come forward to become the presidential candidate. It's not about the number of candidates in the list, it's about the quality of the candidate. We are not going to look at the number of candidates or the favoritism and all those things. We are going to look at the quality of the candidate. And wouldn't it be fantastic if we can bring all the candidates together onto a round table and we question them. We ask them questions how well they can perform. And people can listen to them And then they can understand exactly who is the best out of all. I remember in the last election, 2019, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa never came for any debate. I mean, we went for all the debates that were held, but he never turned up. And I do not know, even without hearing the sound of his voice, people voted for him. Isn't it sad for a country that it happens that way? And this time, please, no. And we will not allow that to happen. And our desperate need is that we elect someone fantastically good, upright, honest, and someone who will work for the sake of the people of this nation, not for himself.
I'd also like to ask you about your thoughts on these political alliances that are forming as of late. We see there have been many alliances. Some may even call it mushroom parties. We see a lot of crossing overs, going independent, and so on. This all happens when an election is coming closer. And that has always been the culture of Sri Lankan politics. And now when the voters go to vote at the ballot, how must they think smart when they cast their vote? How do they select the proper party or the proper candidate, considering the fact that they've been going from one party to the other party when they feel like this party will do better than the other one?
I can only say, don't vote for the monkeys who jump from one to the other. Don't vote for them, because they are coming together, they are forming coalitions because they desperately want to be elected. And they believe, most of these people say upfront, they say they are very honest, they haven't done anything bad, but the very fact that you were in the parliament for such a long time, earning so much money, having so much power, yet doing nothing for the country, that itself disqualifies you. That's it.
Definitely. I'd also like to ask you, since we're coming to the end of tonight's program, what are your thoughts on candidates who have previously held positions such as the presidency or prime ministership and so on, coming back and contesting for the same thing over and over again? Because in other countries we see that when they feel like they are not having the capacity of holding those positions anymore, they give up. They're like, okay, I've held this role for this amount of time and now I don't have the capacity to do my duties anymore, so I will step down. That is how decent they are.
Exactly.
But in Sri Lanka, whether you can or you cannot, whether you have the capability or not, they will continue to stay in power because they want to have those benefits. What are your thoughts on people coming back to contest when they've already held those positions and failed to do their duties?
Yeah, well, they were steering a ship called Titanic, and they managed to drown it, And do we want to trust those who drown Titanic? Is that what Sri Lanka is about? Are the people going to vote for the people who destroyed the economy of the country, who allowed it to, we have actually taken 18 trillion rupees from outside, and we are accountable only for 5 trillion. The rest is missing. And who has done that? Those who were in power up to now. And are these the same people that we want to bring back? I mean, if we do that, we are the most foolish nation in the whole world. And I really pray and hope that the people of this country will not have that opportunity to be called the most foolish people in the world. You have only one more chance. 2024 presidential election. You need to be very careful when you listen to people, candidates who are speaking. Remember, 23,000 billion rupee debt we have. We need someone who can get us out of this mess. And that person needs to have integrity, honesty, and a good teamwork. And that's the kind of person that we want. Regardless of what their background is, regardless of what their ethnicity is, we want someone good, proper to manage this country.
So all our voters should think smart and vote smart.
Exactly.
So with that message, it's time to leave you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the People's Platform, Dr. Ajantha Perera. It's always a pleasure to have you on our programs. And with that, it's a wrap of the People's Platform for tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.